people to use CC more than they did in Lich King, at least for 5-man dungeons, stuff like that. And along those lines, we actually have a philosophy that we want stuff to be in PvE to be as CCable as possible. We want you to be able to use your entire set of abilities whenever we possibly can. Anytime we make something immune to CCs, it's always with a lot of consideration of like, do we really have to do this? Because we don't want to do that unless we absolutely have to, if it's not going to be game breaking or encounter breaking. As it relates to PvP, really the approach that we're taking right now is we're trying to slow down the pace of combat. And so anytime you have longer combat times and the encounters take longer between players, it means that the CC has less of an impact than it did before. Because if you're talking about being CC'd for 20 seconds out of a 5-minute fight, for example, if it's a pretty big battle going on, versus 20 seconds out of a 30-second fight, there's a pretty big difference in terms of how it feels and how much you feel crowd controlled.
Thank you.
Yeah, hi. I played a mage since day one. World of Warcraft Vanilla came out, and mages are the best class by far. I mean, they're by far never needed a fix. My only problem is, like, for example, in an arena like Blade's Edge Arena, I'm on a bridge and I blink backwards. What the hell? I've died so many times doing that. I mean, and that happens.
The right way.
I am facing the right way, But like, if you're in a specific spot and you blink, you just kind of teleport backwards on top of a rogue or on top of a warrior. So I'm kind of stuck there. And well, have you guys ever thought of fixing that?
Well, anytime we come across bugs with the way the pathing works, because the way that Blink works is directly related to the way that the game picks a path and tries to find the location for you to blink to. Anytime we find bugs with that, we try to kill those bugs. Anytime we also find problems in the geometry of the location you're talking about, like in Blade's Edge, then we try to fix those geometry to not cause problems like that. Sometimes there's a little hiccup where things don't line up quite correctly, and that's what causes the problem. So anytime we can find that stuff, we do want to fix it. If you can send in the exact location that you have trouble with, then we'll take a look at it.
But I think it is interesting that you started out talking about how awesome you were with your mage, and then led into how you die. So, pro, good man.
Thank you.
Hey guys, I'm Frostfright of the Mal'Ganis Goon Squad. And a couple months ago, I probably would have been up here nitpicking about some minor issue with the Death Knight, but I just want to say, you guys got it pretty much perfect in Cataclysm. They look really great. Yeah, exactly.
Time to go.
But so I decided to ask a more fun question. The Lich King has a lot of really cool abilities that Death Knights could probably use. Have you guys ever put any thought into maybe giving us Defile or Infest?
Level 90 ability right there. Thanks.
Hi, I've been playing an Enhancement Shaman, so my question stems from their playstyle. In relation to direct damage, on-demand burst damaging abilities versus abilities that take a lot of ramp-up time, I noticed that in terms of target switching in PvE and in PvP, where there's a lot of more random things preventing you from getting those ramp-ups to go, is there any consideration in at least addressing that problem?
We've looked at almost every class. I don't know if you saw the panel, the previous panel. We talked a little about how we wanted to make sure that there was gameplay for all 30 of the different talent specs, that where you had a kind of a logical sequence of, well, I open with this, and that leads to this, and that leads to this. Oh, but this is a short fight, so I'm going to take out that second step and just do the whole thing. So ramp up is something we want pretty much everyone to do, and we worked hard to kind of insert it where it didn't exist before. Enhancement has some particular challenges with the way, you know, they've got 2 one-handed weapons. They're hitting very fast, but none of the hits are individually really hard. So it's tricky to give them the kind of burst that we want them to have. You know, they do have the spells, the lightning bolts, and that sort of thing. And I don't know if you've played at 85. Unleashed Weapon is pretty awesome for them. It helps a lot on movement and being at range. Also, the being able to cast on the move periodically is also pretty sweet for those guys. So give it a shot at 85, see what you think.
This guy's going to be a problem. Look at him. He's dressed for combat.
The Brotherhood has one simple question. Throughout the history of Azeroth, we've had to share our legendary weapons with warriors, paladins, and even dirty hunters. Are there any plans for a melee legendary DPS dagger?
I can't say that we have a specific weapon that we're working on right now. We'll definitely keep that in mind. One of the things, though, that we think about when we create a legendary is we do want it to get used by a variety of different classes, because we don't make legendaries very often. And if we're not going to make them very often, we want them to be usable by a lot of people when we do. So it's a little bit dicey to make a dagger, since it's kind of narrow in terms of how many classes can use it.
We decided on a staff yesterday, by the way. Just letting you know.
Sweet.
Thank you.
Staff.
We'll put a dagger at the tip of the staff. And you'll be happy.
One more step. There you go.
My rogue has been a unique glaiver since Burning Crusade, and I was wondering if I would still be able to get in Cataclysm.
A what?
My warglaive. I only have one at the moment.
Yeah, you can still get him.
Yeah, keep farming.
Illidan, he's there.
Is it the same for all the other legendaries?
Everything but Atiesh.
Atiesh is the only one you can't get.
Because teleporting to Karazhan is very valuable at level 85.
One more step. There you go.
Hello, Kaios of DPS from Scylla. I just have a question about Avenger Shield.
And
it
when you
seems like it's trying to do a little bit too much. It's using single target, AoE, you get your silence, your daze, you can glyph it for more single target and use it to fill dead space in your new rotation. I was just, on top of all that, it also interrupts. Is it possible to move maybe the interrupt mechanic onto a separate ability for prot paladins, as that's an ability that prot paladins are the only tanks that don't have an interrupt?
Yeah, I think to answer the interrupt question first, I think we've talked about that we want to make sure that protection has an interrupt. I've said before, we view it more as a quality of life thing than like a I can't function without it thing, but we're not against doing it, and I think we'll get there eventually. On the Avenger Shield question, we were purposely trying to kind of use that as a showcase for the new glyph system, where the major glyphs in particular are there for utility, and you can kind of decide, I want to apply this major glyph here or not. The daze on Avenger Shield is very useful in some situations, PvP for example. It's not always useful when you're trying to pull things towards you and you don't necessarily want them dazed. So we're trying to see if the glyphs feel cool there, and we could be wrong and they feel like a burden that you're having to swap them around all the time. Sometimes with abilities like that if an ability is too narrow, it can be a little boring because there's always like the right and wrong time to use it. So I actually think abilities are more interesting if they can fill a couple of unique purposes, and it's up to the player to decide, do I want to use it now? Like, I can use my Avenger Shield now for a lot of damage, but that means if there's a straggler coming into the fight later, it might be on cooldown for that. So we try to use that a little bit as a test of player skill to decide when's the right time to use it, rather than always being like crystal clear that now's when I hit that button.
Thank you.
This is more of an aesthetic question, but has anybody ever given thought to changing the glow on Death Knight's eyes from blue to red to green, depending on what spec they are or what presence they're in?
Alex probably has something to say about that, because the eye glow color has different connotations.
No, we haven't. It might get a little too Christmas tree-y, it sounds like. we like that there's some consistency there, I think, from just a gameplay perspective. When you see the blue eyes, whether it be on an NPC or a PC, it reads Death Knight, death. So, but, you know, Chris, anything to add here? We could talk about it.
No, I mean, I think that, you know, green, red, those things have very specific meanings in the game as well. Like, you don't want it to read as spell. And if you start getting into those categories, it starts blurring those lines. So, yeah, I mean, I agree that we like it. We feel like it represents that class very well, and it's probably something we won't change.
Right. For example, we generally use red glowing eyes to represent demonic. So we try and build that sort of easy distinction so that if you see a character that's got red glowing eyes, you know there's some sort of demonic influence versus